So, you're hyped about Diablo 4, but you don't know what class to play. Well, fear not, you indecisive bastard, you're not alone. Today, I'll give you a TLDR of each class, what they bring to the table, and you can make the call if you're personally attracted to whatever they've got going on. It'll be like Tinder, except without you getting disappointed. Why don't we start off with something for the straightforward, basic bitches out there? Do you want to be on the front lines, fighting with your own two hands and relying on nobody but you? Because having friends is as much of a sin as skipping leg day? Well, crack open a fresh jug of protein powder there, Bruno, and check out the Barbarian. Barbarian is the quintessential poster child of straightforward aggression and carving through enemies as a one-man army. Barbs don't have a lot of range, but hey, that's for cowards anyway. You want to smell the sweet stench of fear from inches away as you crash your way through the battlefield. Close range melee damage is your business, and business is good. Despite being a very chunky boy, you're oddly mobile, running through engagements kind of like a 300-pound ballerina with a sword, an axe, or whatever else you feel like using to cleave people in two. Even though you're only here to whack people, you have some versatility. You can do things like bleed your enemies and deal damage over time. You can stun enemies with attacks like bash, and you can even deal quality AoE damage. And because you're thicker than a bowl of oatmeal, you can take a lot of punishment, not needing to worry as much as the other classes about getting your ass beat like a drum. But before you put on your own Letterman jacket and start shoving nerd demons into a locker, consider a few drawbacks. You won't be able to deal damage at long range as well as other classes can, meaning if there's an enemy even bigger and stronger than you, you'll have no choice but to hurl yourself at it and risk getting out-jocked by the competition. Barbarians are also fairly slow in the early game, not really ramping up and gaining the really OP stuff until a bit later. But if you don't like to overthink things, want something straightforward, chunky, and forgiving for new players, look no further than the Barb. But what if you're the kind of player who doesn't like to get their hands dirty? And no, we ain't talking about no support class healing like Mercy Overwatch or any bullshit like that. You're gonna cause plenty of bloodshed. You'll just do so while sipping a refreshing drink at the back of the battle, giggling with delight as you watch the enemy struggle with endless waves of your best bros. I'm of course talking about the Necromancer, everybody's favorite versatile edgelord. The Necromancer has historically always been a fun way to play Diablo. And yeah, while you do have different ways to customize your combat, near or far, most Necromancers flock to the class because of the bottomless bag of weird tricks you can pull out to be an absolute nuisance to the enemy. Gru can kick rocks. Your minions are almost as cute but way more potent, and they can do different things. Skeleton warriors can rush the front lines and hack away. Golems can waddle in and tank aggro. Skeletal mages can even chill in the backfield with you while chucking damage from afar. But there's so much more on the table than being able to just snap your fingers and have the boys charge in on your behalf. You've got the ability to deal debuffs, trap foes with bones, and use blood magic to crowd control and convert damage into health. If you're tired of summoning a new best friend every 5 minutes, just take that fresh body on the battlefield and turn it into a bomb with corpse explosion. There's no shortage of fun stuff you can do with bodies, living or dead. But before you roll up to the party with drip that would put even the South Park goth clique to shame, consider a few drawbacks. You are far from a tank, and if you're in endgame content so tough that your non-optimized minions are getting ripped apart like stuffed animals, saying that you'd feel vulnerable might be a little bit of an understatement. You're only as strong as the undead bros who fight on your behalf, and if they're getting clowned, you're getting clowned. But if you're cool with a little bit of resource management, a neat bag of tricks, and friends on demand, look no further than the Necro. Maybe the idea of fighting at range sounds kind of good to you, but the Necro is just too dark. You've got more of a mystic vibe. It's possible you're into astrology or healing crystals, or maybe you have a life-size poster of Yennefer in your bedroom. If that is ringing a bell, you might want to check out the Sorcerer. Fighting up close with melee damage is sweaty and gross, and ain't nobody got time for that. Your deal is throwing tons of elemental damage at your enemies from afar, sprinkled in with lots of fun AoE. But the Sorcerer is more than just magic missile on demand. You've got access to a unique enchantment mechanic, which can help you take advantage of awesome passive effects as well. Magic while you magic. And it ain't over if a creep manages to slip by your friendly group bouncer, the Barbarian, and start dancing all up on you. You've got magical pepper spray in the form of fun things like ice armor and flame shield. You don't want to think about defense though. You want to think about all the fun things you can do offensively. Things like slowing and freezing your enemies in place, or tagging big groups of foes with chain lightning damage. You're pretty much going to be cosplaying as a bloodlusted version of either Ice King, Emperor Palpatine, or Princess Azula, or maybe some unholy combination of all three. But before you decide to become a beautiful, elegant arsonist, consider a few drawbacks. You are squishy. squishy, and while you do have ways to get people out of your grill, too much pressure and you're gonna fold like origami. Whereas the Barbarian and the Druid are both challenging enemies to smash a brick in their face just so they can laugh it off before cutting them down the middle, you, on the other hand, are the type of person to quickly yell out the safe word at the slightest hint of damage. You're not as effective at close range, so much like your relationship with your family, you're gonna have to be really good at maintaining just the right distance. If you're cool with a little bit of mana resource management and the idea of being kinda like Storm minus the moral compass, you should check out the Sorcerer. But what if you got that dog in you? You want to be an up-close bruiser like the Barbarian, but you also hope every year will finally be the year when they bring back Rainforest. If that's hitting close to home, the Druid might be for you. The Druid is an up-close basher, but maybe a little bit more unique than the Barbarian. While you definitely will be hacking and slashing, you might also be biting and gnashing. Druids have the ability to shapeshift into a werewolf or a werebear, depending on if you're a twink or not. Depending on if you want to either do fast attacking and crit damage or be more of a chonky defensive tank, is what I said. You may not be as tanky as the beefiest Barbarian, but you will have the ability to also be fairly good at crowd control while being tanky. And good news to those wishing to fight like an animal, Druid is at the moment apparently rock solid in the endgame. It might take a while before you reach the summit of OP Mountain, but if you can bear the burden of maybe being bored in the early game, great rewards await you. But before you heed the call of the wild, consider a few drawbacks. While the Druid does have the ability to fight at long range in the form of earth, wind, and lightning magic, don't expect to pop off as hard as the Sorcerer or the Rogue from downtown. Your playstyle also might require a bit more thought than the Barbarian, as there's more to your gameplay loop than just spin to win. If you're cool with a potential early game slog and getting up close to free the beast all over the enemy, Druid might be for you. But finally, what if you want something really versatile, really complex and challenging? Barbarian is too forehead and Necromancer is too passive. When you play D&D, you always come equipped with an edgy backstory for your character, and goddamn do you look good in tight black leather. Well, turn off the lights and break out the bondage, it's time to check out the Rogue. Rogues are challenging and complex. They can imbue their weapons with magic, lay traps for their enemies, or do what they're most well known for, dealing ginormous critical damage when needed. Overly hyper gamers who like spamming movement tech just to show how skilled they are might enjoy the potential movement options that Rogue can bring to the table. Zigzagging and weaving through the battlefield to bring pain to select targets of your choosing is the name of the game for Rogue. While we're not 100% sure on what the endgame content will look like at this point, most players who no-lifed D4 before release are in fair agreement, Rogues bring the pain. If you ain't about that tank life and just want to flex big damage numbers, well, you may have come to the right place. But before you sharpen those Cutco knives and squeeze into those skin-tight pants, consider a few drawbacks. The term glass cannon comes to mind. Yeah, you can dish out the pain, but you also take it, and while you can play keep away with ranged combat, if you do get caught up close, you won't exactly be shrugging off the damage. Rogues are fairly difficult to play compared to other options on the table, too. Being quick, nimble, and playing keep away and dishing out damage when the time is right ain't exactly new player friendly, but if you enjoy a challenge and love the thought of a high, beautiful damage ceiling just begging to be climbed, the Rogue might be for you. Let me know down in the comment section which class you're gonna end up playing and why. Like today's video if you want more Diablo 4 content from me. Right now we're just at the surface level, but if need be, I'm prepared to dive deep and cover multiple games. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on stream.